Kozak 22 has three more questions. What turret types and ships do you suggest for combat? Anything. It depends entirely on what you want to do. Obviously, look at the skill bonuses. If you are skilling into projectile turrets, look for ships that have projectile turret skills. If you're doing missiles, look for ships that have missile skills. Like, for example, again, watch the Tal War video about how missiles work, and it shows that that is a ship that has lots of missile skills, or the Vexor for using drones, that kind of thing. For combat, you can use any of those. Amar pilots will swear that energy turrets are the best. Hybrids for Glente and Caldari, they'll swear by them. Certainly, actually, blasters, the short-range hybrid turrets are the highest DPS turrets in the game, but they are very, very short range. And projectile turrets, obviously, again, it depends against your target as well. If I'm going up against an armor tank, I'm going to want projectile turrets more than I'm going to want energy turrets. There's pros and cons to every turret type, and as for ships, again, it depends. It's all very well turning up in a battleship, like a Typhoon or something, and going absolutely crazy with, hey, look at my big guns, but then not being able to lock onto anything because everything you're up against is too small that it just rips you to shreds. Is it better to buy a ship or to manufacture a ship? Yes. Simple as that, yes. If you are going to buy, if you have the skills to manufacture a ship cheaply and you can get all of the ores and materials, well, yeah, you save yourself ISK. It's ISK versus time. Obviously, if you have the time and the skills to build the ship yourself, awesome, go for it. I know a lot of miners who use their own ores and their own reprocessing skills and their own industrial skills to build their next venture. But at the same point, there's nothing wrong with skipping all of that if you've got the money and just going, bam, let's buy a ship. And 2, which version of tanking works better for shield and armor, active tanking or passive tanking? Again, I've kind of discussed this elsewhere. Look in the shield and armor tanking video, that goes over that in great detail. How are blueprints not seeded in the market acquired or produced? Essentially, blueprints are available from reverse engineering. When you go out and blow up a ship, you often get left with a wreck. That wreck can then either be reprocessed for parts, or, which usually go towards building rigs, or you can put it into reverse engineering, and there is a possibility of it giving you a blueprint. So, for example, if you wanted to get a, let's think, if you wanted to get a succubus blueprint, you're going to go out and blow up a load of Sanchez Nation ships, bring their wrecks back, and you're going to want to reverse engineer those and hope that you get the blueprints that you want. When joining a corp, asks Ultimate Origin, does the whole account join or only the individual character on the account? Individual character only. You can have 3 different characters in 3 different corps. 1 character is 1 slot. How does this work? As I just said, each individual character, yes, is an individual in the corp. That means for me, I will obviously have a corporation main, a corporation account that is going to be focusing purely on the skills for getting the corporation up to 200 as quickly as possible. It will probably also have some minor skills like marketeering, etc., just to get some extra money. I will then also have my main account, which will be what I want to actually do, having fun in the game. So that means, of course, yes, straight off the bat, the 50 spaces in the corporation are already down to 48. This means that everyone at first will be allowed to bring 1 alt into the corporation. Obviously, even if your alt isn't in the corporation, you can still use it. So, for example, if you have a industry alt and you've got a mining alt, the mining alt's in the corp, but the industry one isn't. If someone says, hey, I really want to build this ship, how can I do that? Of course, they can still trade the stuff to you on your industrial account, and then you can do that. So you don't necessarily need to be in the corp to benefit from it. I will guarantee everyone, with the exception of myself, will have 1 in the corp. The second accounts will have to wait until either a waitlist dies down or vice versa, if the corp gets bigger. What weapon types match what playstyles? Kite and snipe, drone and chill, dogfights, etc. Well, it's a very broad question there, Winnin. Kite and snipe, obviously kiting works better with things like missiles and drones, which are great ways of doing that. You can do it with the turrets as well, just it's difficult to stay in an optimum range when you're moving away from a target. Whereas drones and missiles don't really have an optimum range. If you're in range, you get hit. Drone and chill, I don't think drone and chill is a great sort of necessarily great strategy to sort of sit there and just let your drones do the work. Anyone who sees that you're just doing that and not moving can come straight after you and blow you sky high. Dogfights, it's all very hit and miss. Weapon types, ultimately, they match any playstyle. I wouldn't necessarily try kiting with turrets, but there are plenty of people who do it. The Quackinator, how powerful are stealth mechanics? Is there any way others can see you when stealthed? Yes, as my covert ops video will explain, you still appear in the overview, but they just have no idea where you are. I think directional scanners in EVE Online can pick you up if you're cloaked, but other than that, they don't see you. You don't appear in the grid. You don't appear on screen other than your name in the list. That means someone can tell you are somewhere in that system. If you're in MASPA, for example, and you see that there are 30 people on the system, and you can only actually see 29 of them, you can assume that the 30th is somewhere in that system. He could be in the same belt as you, he could be in any of the other belts, he could be around a moon, he could be anywhere. To see someone when they're stealthed, if you get within, I think it's 2 kilometers of them, they automatically uncloak, but other than that, there's no real way, as far as I'm aware. Again, someone can correct me there. Ultima Origin again, please explain the best utilizing cloaking for defensive, mining, and offensive purposes. What does it? When does it activate? Manual or automatic? Manual. Does it take up energy? Yes. What methods are there to see cloaked ships? Again, I think it's only scanners. Are there exceptions, and how does it work? Go watch the Covert Ops cloaking video. That will answer most of that. How to best utilize cloaking for defensive, mining, and offensive purposes. For things like mining, it's more a case I don't think you can't sit there cloaked mining, because firing a weapon, which a mining laser qualifies as, breaks your cloak. But it does mean that, for example, if you see someone jump into your belt, you can immediately jump to another belt and then cloak, which allows you to drift away without being seen, without them being able to lock onto you, that kind of thing. If you can cloak before they can lock, they can't lock until they decloak you, that kind of thing. For offensive purposes, that's where things like stealth bombers and that come in. They just mean you can get right up next to your target before you then decloak and then activate your abilities. There's usually a window of opportunity between decloak and actually being able to activate some of your E-War modules and things like that, but it's still the element of surprise. What's the best way to earn ISK on the market, generally spoken? Selling stuff. Literally, that's it. It depends what the things people are after at that point are. Is it better to undercut all concurrents or just price them the same as the rest in the system you're in? Again, depends. If you want a quick sell, obviously you can undercut, but the more you undercut, the weaker the market becomes, and the less money you will actually make for it, and you kind of price out other people doing that. Sometimes it's worth selling the same as the system. If something's selling well, keep the prices the same. For example, a good example of this is just to look at your local shops. I mean, obviously difficult with COVID-19, but next time you're out and about, have a look in the supermarket. If you look in one supermarket, you'll see that most baked beans are priced at a similar price to each other. Or loaves of bread tend to be a similar price, unless you've got like premium or basic. Most sort of standard baked beans or most standard loaves of bread or standard 6-packs of eggs are going to cost the same, regardless of brand. And if you go to a different supermarket, you'll find that they're pretty much the same price. If a loaf of bread costs $1 in, say, Aldi or Walmart or wherever, it's probably going to cost $1 everywhere else as well, unless there's a special going on. So it's kind of the same there, because bread sells. Things that sell constantly will have one set price that just people are willing to pay. And if you undercut that, you start to damage that market. If you overprice it, it just doesn't sell. On the other hand, though, there are certain things that when they become in high demand, you can push the price up. Because they're selling faster than people are putting them on the market. This happened with things like Ventures. Ventures, when the game started, were selling for like 10 million. By the end of the beta, because so many people were making them, they were selling for 3 to 4 million. It depends on the item, it depends on the market. Don't undercut by much if you undercut at all. The more you undercut, the more you hurt the market, and the more you actually hurt yourself. You'll get you'll get less money than you actually deserve for earning it. Beyond that as well, you say here, I really struggled to sell ore during the beta because my prices just weren't right. The beta had a very unstable market. It hadn't settled. Most of the systems weren't in place. What you've got to remember is that lots of people were mining, and there was no reason to really do much else. Like, people weren't replacing ships as much as they do in EVE Online. In EVE Online, people are constantly buying ores to reprocess, to minerals to sell, because they're constantly building ships, because ships are constantly being sold, because they're being blown up left, right, and center. If no ships are being destroyed, then there's no need to buy more ships. And if there's no need to buy ships, there's no need to build ships. And if no one's building ships, no one's buying minerals, and if no one's buying minerals, no one's reprocessing ores, and if no one's reprocessing ores, no one's buying raw ores. It's all a chain. It's all a chain. Genuinely, I do recommend, actually, if you're getting into this kind of thing and selling on the market, EVE Online is genuinely studied in many universities' economics degrees, because it is a fully functioning economy with exchange rates, etc., thanks to how Plex and ISK interact with real-world money like dollars. Don't be afraid of actually looking at, say, free courses online in economics, and there's a lot to be said for that, and it does help. Carl Featherwind asks, seems that Rex drop ship parts, therefore no salvaging required. Yes and no. You can drop ship parts. I think salvaging in EVE Echoes just meant you could salvage for more ship parts. Again, I'm not 100% on this. Salvaging is something I actually want to look at if I get into the final test. Can you bookmark in Echoes? I'm assuming you mean, can you bookmark systems and stuff like that? Yes. Yes, you can. Are there combat probes and or hidden anomaly probes for secret sites? Not yet. Not that we've seen. I've watched a few of your videos, but haven't noticed yet if autopilot does the 15km slow boat at each gate. Does that exist? Please, please say no. In EVE Echoes during the beta, no it didn't, which was useful for autopiloting in more dangerous systems, simply because it meant that you would jump to a gate and then you'd pretty much jump straight through it. It was hard to be locked down. And gate camping wasn't such a thing. That said, whether or not that makes it into live, I don't know. A lot of pirates complained that gate camping couldn't be a thing in nullsec, and there's two sides of the fence to that. There's two sides of the fence. I'm not going to go into which side of that I'm on and or why. Both have valid arguments. I can see why gate ganking, Lord, I can't pronounce that. I can see why that's frustrating and why it can be irritating. At the same time, it does add things like scouting into the game that otherwise you lose if you remove the possibility for that. DZ Lord S'mores. Wow, crikey. DZ Tor Lord S'mores, I think. Is that Tor? Is that Tor? I can't remember my hiragana. Is it possible to own a section of New Eden? Yes. Sovereignty is going to be a thing. More precisely, is it possible to dominate the market in a sector to the point that you're at the top of the food chain there? The more precisely part actually unclarifies your statement. In EVE Online, there is sovereignty, where ultimately you can take over entire systems. If you've ever watched those really cool trailers of EVE Online about how you can affect the universe, that's how. Ultimately, and when you hear things like Blue Donut, that's where you're looking at entire sectors of space that one corporation has become so powerful that no one else can even get a look in. It's basically join us or die, which isn't an ideal situation to be in, but there are safety valves against that kind of thing in EVE Echoes, and certainly OpForce are big against that as well. So yes, it is possible to own sections of New Eden. 100%, that is what sovereignty is. Sovereignty is not in the game on launch. It'll be added slightly later, which is important. You do not want that being immediately in the game. It will screw everything. Does training skills require skill points and ISK, or just skill points? Oh lord, I actually don't remember. Watch my skill point video. Watch my skill point video. I think there's a bit of both. I think you pay ISK to start training a skill, like when you first go into advanced skill training. The advanced one requires ISK, but after that it doesn't quite. I can't remember. Check out the skill training video. It's on the channel here. It shows it there. What is the cheapest drone boat? Probably the Algosh, or Algos, however you want to pronounce it, the Galente Destroyer. That's probably your easiest one to get into. Obviously, being a destroyer, it's fairly cheap, cheaper than a Vexor being a cruiser. I think the Dragoon as well for a Mar can be cheap. It depends. It depends on the market. You'll find that it's probably either the Dragoon or the Algos, but it does depend entirely on the market in the area where you are. Do attack ships be lost permanently during mining or fighting? If someone blows up your ship, it gone. It gone for good. If someone blows up your venture, that's it. It's gone. You might be able to come back and salvage some of the stuff that was in the hold, or any of the bits and pieces left over in the wreckage, but the ship itself is gone. If someone blows up your ship, you are never flying that ship again. You're going to have to buy and fit a new ship. Skill points are the important point on your account, though. Those are what are kind of going at there. So your skill points, etc. But any turrets, any fittings that were on that ship are probably lost unless you can salvage them. Anything that was in the hold is probably lost unless you can salvage it. Again, don't fly what you can't afford to lose, and if you can't afford to lose it, make sure you have a damn good security escort with you if you're going into dangerous space. And what will we get as a starting ship? This is where you look at corvettes. These are, for example, the Minmatar Reaper. They are little tiny piddly starting ships that you can actually get for free at any station you dock at. If you dock at a station in your pod, you can get a free corvette. You can also undock from a particular ship. So if I'm in, say, my Stabber at a station, I can leave the Stabber into a pod, and it will then give me a Reaper or whatever the Corvette for that particular race is. Each of the 4 races has their own different Corvette. They are not really worth talking about. They are literally just good for getting from A to B if you don't want to have to move your ship. Obviously, if I'm going from, say, I'm at Maspa and I've bought a ship in Jita, I don't want to fly a ship from Maspa to Jita. Like, I don't want to fly my Stabber, because when I get to Jita, I then have to park the Stabber there and come back. The Corvette is basically a throwaway ship for that. It's kind of like taking a taxi that you drive yourself. And I think that gets us to the bottom of the list. This has been quite a long video. I'm probably going to have cut this in half. If I have, please excuse the very rough cut. I've recorded this all on my phone in one swift take. I'm not entirely sure what time I started recording this, so you can see it's going to be quite a long one. But thank you ever so much for everyone who asked these questions. If you've enjoyed this, I will consider opening up the Echoes FAQ channel on the chat again in order to do a second round of these. I hope you found this useful. Let me know if you've got any further questions in the description down below, in the comment section down below. Certainly, as I said, there have been a couple of questions I've asked during these videos as well, things I'm not sure of myself. If you know an answer, check the comment section down below and give answers there, or check if there's one that I've not given. I'm hoping this is going to be a really useful resource for you guys. Thanks for watching, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.